Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. I'm Mike Drotis, Bible teacher and preacher, and you are watching Solving the Prophetic Puzzle, where each lesson we look at the prophetic puzzle piece and begin to put things together so that we can get a clear vision of the end times. This is lesson 8, and we are now going to talk about Daniel's 70-week prophecy. Remember last time we met, we were discussing the times of the Gentiles, where Daniel had various visions and dreams. And he saw Gentiles' kingdoms rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. And he called that the times of the Gentiles. We are in the times of the Gentiles right now. But Daniel was also concerned about his nation, his country, Israel. His people were in captivity to the Persians. And in Daniel chapter 9, we read that he was praying to God and asking God for the future of his land and of his people. And the angel Gabriel came and spoke to him. And he gave him this prophecy. So if you have your Bibles and you want to follow along, turn to Daniel chapter 9, looking at verse 24. Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. Gabriel's saying, 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up visions and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Now therefore, verse 25, now therefore, and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublesome times. And verse 26, and after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. Let's stop there for just a minute. Here Gabriel is telling Daniel that the future of his country, there will be allotted to them 70 weeks. And so that Israel will go ahead and go back to, the captive Jews will go back to Israel and rebuild Jerusalem, will be 7 weeks. And then Messiah will come, and Messiah will die for the sins of the world, and will die for the people. That will take them through another 62 weeks. So if you look at that, that would be 483 days, if you looked at it as days. There is no way that all that occurred in 483 days. There's no way that they went back to restore and build Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, came. There shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. But if you turn the days to years, it works out exactly right, where the day that the Jews were released to go back to Israel and rebuild the temple, all the way to the day that Jesus died, the Messiah died, is 483 years. In this case, the weeks are years, and it's 70 weeks of 7 years. 490 years is allotted to the Jews. They've already went through 483 years, and when Messiah died, the time stopped. Now let's continue. And the people of the prince, I'm in verse 26, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood. Until the end of the war, desolations are determined. And that's exactly what happened. After Jesus died, in 70 A.D., the Romans came and they destroyed the entire city of Jerusalem. They scattered the Jews throughout the world, and the times of the Gentiles then began. But we still are allotted 1 more week. We've only seen Israel get 62 weeks plus 7, which is 69 weeks. There's still 1 more week that's missing. And that's why we're looking at this as a last day prophecy. Look at verse 27. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many. Who is the he that he's talking about? It's up there in verse 26. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Verse 26 is talking about a man, a prince, who will come in the future, and he will come from the very people that destroyed Jerusalem in AD 70, which was the Romans. So we're talking about a man that will come from the Roman Empire, the ancient Roman Empire, and in verse 27, he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. There's the 70th week. God always keeps his promises. The Jews will be given one last week. 7 years are remaining on the prophetic time clock. That time hasn't come yet, but we're seeing it unfold right now. But in the middle of the week, so 3.5 years into the 7 years, he shall bring an end to sacrifices and offerings, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate. What does that mean? It means that this man, this leader, this revived Roman leader coming from the revived Roman Empire, the Antichrist, will make a covenant with many. And the Jews will enter into a covenant with him. Now notice that it says that he will confirm a covenant. It doesn't say that he will actually establish the covenant. He will confirm a covenant with many. And it will be for 7 years. And for the first 3.5 years, this covenant of peace and security with many will be very beneficial to Israel. They'll benefit from peace and security. But in the middle of this 7 years, it says here that in the middle of the week, which would be 3.5 years, he shall bring an end to sacrifices and offerings. This covenant is so good that he's talking about the sacrifices will be restored to Israel once again. And they will begin to worship God like they did of old with animal sacrifices. But where? He shall bring the end of sacrifices and offerings, and on the wings of abomination shall be one who makes desolate. So in the middle of this, he will go into the temple, and he will decide that he will cut off the animal sacrifices. We've got to look at another verse. What does the abomination that makes desolate mean? Turn to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now we're getting somewhere. This is getting good. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Look at verse 3. Paul had revelation into this as well. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is created, above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Paul's saying here that the day of the Lord's return will not occur until the man of sin goes into the temple and exalts himself above all that is called God. Look at Matthew chapter 24. Now, I do want to be clear. I'm not talking here about the rapture. I'm talking about the return of Jesus Christ to this earth when he comes as King of Kings and Lord of Lords and sets up his kingdom here. When will that day come? First things first. Therefore, in Matthew chapter 24, verse 15, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee and into the mountains. So Jesus was also talking about this abomination of desolation, where in the future, when the man from the revived Roman Empire comes, he will make a covenant with many. He will go into a covenant with Israel. He will establish a time of relatively peace for the first 3.5 years. But in the middle of the 7 years, at the 3.5 year mark, pride will be lifted up in him, and he will go into the temple, and he will stop the sacrifices to God, and he will exalt himself and desire worship from the Jews for him. And when that happens, the Jews are going to reject it. And after that happens, there will be a time of great tribulation, as Jesus says in Matthew 24. And then the Lord will come and set up a millennial kingdom. So what does that mean? It means this. The Jews still have 7 years left. When the times of the Gentiles ends, and there will be 1 week left allotted to the Jews. And the Jews will be in a covenant relationship with some man that comes from the ancient Roman Empire. And he'll be a man of intrigue. He'll be an intelligent man. He'll be charismatic. He'll be known as a peace dealer. And they'll accept him as one of their own. And he will reinstitute he will help rebuild the temple. And they will institute the temple sacrifices of animals. But in the middle of the 3.5 years, he will go into the temple and try to exalt himself as God. Where are we at this? We're on the very verge of seeing all this happen right now. And that's why we're studying the end times. We are on the edge of what is going to be known as Daniel's 70th week. And we're going to witness it. It's coming soon. Get ready. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Solving the Prophetic Puzzle. God bless you.